In Heartburn, we are going to be introduced to acids and bases. Our objectives, we should be able to determine if a substance is an acid or base. We should understand the pH scale represents the acidity or alkalinity of a solution. Alkalinity just means how basic something is in terms of acids and bases. We're going to identify if a solution is acidic or basic by the pH, and we should understand and know how to use a pH indicator. So, acids and bases. Acids and bases. Our first thing is acids. Our first definition is going to be something that has H plus as an ion. And that's going to be, for the most part, almost all acids that we cover in this class. And there's some examples. And bases have the OH minus ion in them as well. Excuse me. That's what a base is. So most bases that we're going to talk about have the OH minus ion in them. Bronsted-Lowry acids and bases, they're just a more broad definition of acids and bases, encompassing more things than just the Arrhenius acids and bases. Now, we're going to talk more about this in our next class. But acids give an H+, and bases accept them. So an H+ is just a proton. So that's the Bronsted-Lowry, and we're going to talk about that more tomorrow, or next class. The Bronsted-Lowry definition of an acid and base is referring to a reaction with another substance. So that's how it's a little bit different. Whereas this Arrhenius definition is a simpler definition, which just talks about the substance. And we should have a better understanding of that after next class. So this we'll just review it later. pH scale. This is our longest slide, and this is pretty much the rest of the notes. So pH is a scale that represents how acidic or basic a substance is. It goes from 0 to 14 normally. 7 is in the middle of that scale, and that is considered to be a neutral pH, meaning it's not acidic or basic. The lower the pH, the more acidic something is. The higher the pH, the more basic something is. And I added an extra greater than, but less than 7 is acidic, greater than 7 is basic. Okay? So just... Let's stop it. Cross out that greater than. Just cross it out like Mr. Costa. The pH scale, you don't have to copy this down, but I have a couple slides of common substances. So, certain things that are slightly acidic are milk and bananas. Pure water has a pH of 7. Our blood is slightly basic. Things like soap are mildly basic, and drain cleaner, or lye, L-Y-E, is very basic. Apples are pretty acidic. Vinegar is an acid. Lemon juice is fairly acidic. Hydrochloric acid is very acidic, and if it's concentrated enough. All right. Neutral in the middle. Here's another one. This actually gets some numbers here. We have basic, like drain cleaners, 13.5. Blood, about 7.5. Seawater is fairly basic. Oranges are acidic. Rainwater tends to be slightly acidic. Stomach acid, believe it or not, is acidic. Indicators. Indicators are substances that have different colors depending on the pH, and that's something you guys are going to want to write down. 1, So here are a few different examples of indicators. Here's bromophenol blue. In pH 1, 2, and 3, it's a yellowish color. pH 4, it's purple. And above pH 5 and above, it's a purplish color. Methyl red is another indicator. Universal indicator is this one. Resazurin is this. Bromocresol purple is another one. And phenolphthalein is a common one that we're going to be using later in the year. It's pronounced phenolphthalein. In basic solution, it tends to be purple or pink. And in acidic solution, it's clear. So we're going to be using that one. Yes?
What do the colors mean? Like, what does yellow mean?
It depends on the indicator. So, like, if you're testing an unknown solution, like if you have a fish tank, or you're testing the pH, or if you're a lifeguard and you need to test the pH of the pool, you're going to use a different indicator based on what your need of the test is. So, if you have methyl universal indicator, there's really not much difference in pH 2 or 3, 1, 2, or 3. So if you want to test the difference between pH 1 and 2, you're more likely to use methyl red or resazurin. If you're testing pH 7 versus 8, you're not going to use bromophenol blue. You're probably going to use universal indicator. So it depends on what the pH range you're testing is. Okay? So it depends on the substance. Now, interestingly enough, there are many indicators exist in nature. Hydrangea flowers, I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but they come in different colors. And the pH of those is dependent on the soil's pH. So if you have more of a neutral soil, it'll tend to be like a reddish pink color. The lower the pH, the more blue it gets. So if you have a middle pH, like most of our soils, it'll tend to have a bluish, purplish color. So next time you can take a look in the spring. What's that? Oh, they're all over the place. So you guys can tell about the pH. Or if you're a gardener, you can change the pH of the soil by adding, making it slightly acid or slightly basic. You can do those with different household substances. Normally, you'd make your pH more basic by adding a lime to it, not the lime juice. Never mind. Moving on. These are objectives again, and we are done with notes.
Oh, guys, keep doing that, and I'm just stretching.
I was about to turn around, but I was like, 2, I had exactly the